If you cannot get your portrait paintings to look good, doesn't matter what you do, this video is for you. Hey, what's up guys, Lucas here. I have been a digital painter, concept artist and illustrator for over the past 10 years. And I have always been really passionate about painting portraits. In fact, some of my first drawings were portraits. Doesn't mean that I was good at it, in fact, I was very bad. But over all of these years of painting portraits, I have realized that there are certain steps that you can follow that will take you all the way from a blank canvas to a successful portrait. In this video, I'm gonna share with you how I painted this portrait in exactly 7 steps so you can follow along and paint a successful portrait. Step number 1 is creating a solid construction sketch. One of the biggest mistakes that I did when I was learning how to paint portraits is relying on what I like to call surface drawing. This is a type of drawing that I really don't recommend to people, especially if you want to eventually draw things from imagination. Most people, when they start learning how to draw, they draw with surface drawing. What it means is that you look at an object and try to recreate the reference by simply outlining the shapes. The problem with this is that you end up with a very two-dimensional or flat object, and it is the worst thing that you can do if you want to paint a successful portrait. That is why, when approaching portraits, you need to do it with construction drawing. And I know that construction and perspective can be intimidating, but they're really not that hard. And once you start drawing that way, you will never want to go back to surface drawing. All you want to do in here is imagining that the whole head, including the facial features, the neck, everything, is built with simple geometric shapes. So you use a sphere for the cranium, a cylinder for the neck, and the same type of method for the nose, the mouth, the ears, and everything in your portrait. Now, there are many ways for you to approach the portrait with construction. The method that I am using right here is one of my favorites when I try to draw more realistic portraits. The name of the method is the Riley Rhythms method. Now, this is not the video to go deeply into the Riley method, but I'm gonna leave a video right here for you to go and check it out if you want to learn more about it. Now, there are still 2 things that I want to tell you about this first step, and they are maybe the most important ones. So if there is anything that you take with you, please pay attention to these 2 things. Number 1, make several sketches before committing to a final one that you're gonna paint. Now, this is especially important if this is the first drawing that you do today. We need to warm up our hand to be able to draw well. So draw a couple of poses, a couple of studies, hopefully of the same model, so that you get your hand going, but also so that you get to study that model and learn the particularities of their specific face. Oftentimes, I will draw the model 1, 2, 3 times, and the third drawing will come out so much better than the first or the second one. And that leads me to the second thing that I wanted to tell you. And this is the most important, and that is to not proceed to the next step until you have a solid sketch. Maybe you see a lot of really good artists out there that seem to just make a doodle or a very rough sketch and then they take it to a fantastic painting. But that is them. If you're anything like me, especially if you struggle painting portraits, making sure that you nail the sketch is gonna save you so many headaches down the line. So if you're not happy with your drawing, do it again, do a different pose. Because believe me, in painting, just like in anything in life, saying "I'll fix it later" is a very bad idea. By the way, if you're curious about the software, all the sketch was done in Clip Studio Paint, while the painting was done in Photoshop. Now, this is just because of my preferences, but honestly, you can follow along in whatever software you want. As long as you have layers and brushes, you will be able to follow along with all the steps. And hey, if you want to improve the way that you draw faces and portraits, I have a treat for you. I prepared a gigantic course called How to Draw Faces Like a Pro, where I teach you everything that I know about drawing faces and heads, going from understanding different face types, facial expressions, characters from imagination, drawing the same character from different angles, and many more things. And you can actually start watching this course completely for free. All you have to do is go to lpart.me/faces, click on any of these buttons, write in your email, and I'll send you access to some of my favorite classes from the course directly to your inbox. Now, let's get back to the video. Step number 2 is painting the base colors. With the sketch step out of the way, it is time for us to put some color in the portrait. There are a couple of things that I like to do in this step to make things easier for me. Number 1 is I like to give a reddish type of tone to the sketch layer. I like to put it on top and paint those base colors under that layer. Why a reddish color is that I find that it blends better with the colors of the skin and makes it for a more natural looking portrait. Now for those base colors, I like to divide them into layers. It is not necessary, but it's how I like to do things. I like to create a different layer for any item that is like significantly different than the other ones in color. So for example, I use one for the skin, another one combining the eyebrows with the eyelashes and the hair, another one for the sclera or the white part of the eye, and so on. Having all of these in separate layers makes it much easier for me to change the colors if I need to. And also it's gonna be very useful for the next step. But before we go there, something very important about these base colors. Make sure to not choose very extreme colors. What I mean with that is don't choose very saturated or desaturated colors, and also not too light or too dark. Stick kind of like to the center of the chromatic circle, because on the next steps we're going to add layers to these colors, and we will need the room for these colors to still breathe or change into shadows and lights. Step number 3 is color variations. A lot of artists skip this step, and it is a tremendous mistake because if you do so, your portraits can end up looking dead. In this step, what we're doing is adding color variations or introducing different hues and saturations to the colors of the skin, the hair, and actually everything that you have in your painting. It is especially important for you to do it in the skin because skin is not a flat color. If you pay attention to somebody's face, you're gonna see a bunch of greens, purples, blues, magentas, all over the face, the neck, the body. This is especially noticeable when you study the work of masters like John Singer Sargent, where you can clearly see the pops of color just all over the face. But when you see the portrait from far away, all of these colors harmonize and come together to make a pleasant skin color and make the person look alive. So this is what we want to do in step 3. Look at the reference, look at your model, try to find these color variations and put them into your painting. And if you need some rough guidelines to know what to look for, you generally will have the face divided into 3 different color variations. You will have a yellower zone on the forehead, a redder or more magenta zone around the nose, the cheeks and the ears, and a bluer or colder zone around the mouth and at the height of the chin. This of course changes from person to person, so make sure to pay attention to your model. Step number 4 is light and shadow, and here's where the portrait really starts taking shape. We're gonna take full advantage of making this portrait in digital by using layer modes to add the light and the shadow to our base. The structure is super simple. You're going to need 4 layers to add light and shadow to your portrait, plus 1 optional that I'm gonna add in this specific portrait. Those 4 layers are the soft shadows and the strong shadows, and the soft highlights and the hard highlights. Easy, right? We're gonna paint each of these ones on their own specific layer and layer mode. The 2 shadows are gonna be in multiply mode. You're going to start by painting the soft shadows. And this step is very easy. You're just going to look at the portrait and divide it between that what is in the light and what is in the shadow. Everything that is in the shadow you're gonna cover with that first multiply layer. The second multiply layer is very important because in most portraits you're going to have shadows that are just a tiny bit darker than the rest. Those deep or strong shadows are the ones that we're gonna paint on that second layer. Easy, right? Now in this specific portrait we had a cool light coming towards the front of the model. Now this is not for every portrait, but it was important on this specific one. So I'm gonna create a new layer on top of these shadow layers. I'm gonna put it to soft light mode, and I'm gonna literally paint that cool light hitting that model's forehead, cheek and body. Again, you don't have to do this if you have a different reference, but if you ever want to paint somebody that has 2 different sources of light, I guess you know how to now. Okay, now let's jump to the light side of our model. We painted the shadows, we painted the secondary light. Now let's paint these 2. So we have the soft highlights and the hard highlights. Just like with the shadows, we're gonna divide it into 2 different layers. These soft ones we're gonna paint with overlay mode. And they're very easy to do. Simply look at where the light is in your model, put a bit of light in there, and then smudge it so that it is soft. This step is super important because it will help us model or sculpt the light side of our model. But we are not quite done because we still have to paint the hard highlights. And these ones, even though they're very small, they are really gonna help to bring life to our portrait. So for these hard highlights, I like to use color dodge mode. And all you have to do is look at your model and see where are the highlights, where can I see a reflection of the light. These are called specular highlights and are, for example, the little light that you see reflected on somebody's eye. Those are speculars. So place those around, give them a little bit of a smudge, and we're gonna be ready for the next step. Step number 5, overpainting and detailing. This is by far the longest step, but it doesn't matter because if you arrived here, that means that you have the whole base of your portrait solid and ready to go. All we have done until now is place elements of the right color and shape in the right places. That means like having a map of your portrait. All we have to do now is refine that map. Here is where you're gonna decide if you were making a quick sketch or a hyper detailed realistic painting. All the steps until now have been exactly the same. So now it is up to you how far you want to take this portrait to. Something super important in this step, at least for me, is that I don't like to replicate the photo or the live model one-to-one. I find that trying to be extremely exact and precise steals away all the fun from the painting, and many times it actually ruins the final result. Instead, I like to think of painting kind of like processing reality through your brain, through your eyes, and spitting something out that is unique to you. So use this step for that. Look at your model, look at your reference, and decide what you want to emphasize out of it. Is it the strength of the colors, maybe the softness of the edges, maybe the size of the eyes, or the way that the nose points up? Not trying to tell you what to do with your portrait, but again, the decision is yours. But I find that this is the perfect step for you to insert a little bit of what you want inside your portrait. Okay, let's go to step 6, and we are really close to the end. So many times when making a drawing on real traditional media like a piece of paper, I finish my drawing, I'm happy with it, put it away, and the next day when I go and look at it, I realize that one eye was bigger than the other or the ear was not in the right place. Well, fortunately with digital, this is something that we can fix. Step 6 is all about the adjustments. Sometimes it is about playing a little bit with the intensity of the colors, maybe with the curves or with the levels. But in this case, for me, it was about liquefying and fixing a little bit the proportions and the features of the face. You see, when I was making this portrait, I made a mistake that I constantly advise people not to do, and that is I tried to finish it in one single sitting. I didn't take a single break and I just went directly all the way from the sketch to the final painting. This is a tremendous mistake because often artists get what is called a tunnel vision. We get focused on the tiny details and we lose perspective of the overall structure of our portrait or painting. So small things like the size of the eyes or the position of the ear felt just a little bit off, so I decided to fix them on this step. And conscious or not about it, most of the artworks that I create are stylized nowadays. So even though I was going for a realistic portrait, I ended up making her eyes just a tad too big, which gave this portrait a bit of a stylized look. So not exactly what I was going for, but honestly, I like it much more this way. And if you have made it this way, congratulations, you should have a very solid portrait in your hands right now. But for me personally, there was something that was missing, and that is step 7, final effects and textures. So the more that I paint in digital, the less I like the perfect softness, digitalness that it has. I love the convenience of it, and that is why I still use it as the main painting medium that I use. But I was looking for a long time for a way to get rid of that soft yuckiness that digital painting has. And because I couldn't find a solution that I was happy with, I decided to create what I call the LP Traditionalizer 2.0. It is a collection of brushes and textures that me and my team painted manually, made specifically to bring the grain and the texture and all of that good stuff that traditional painting has into the digital world. If you want to know more about it, I'm gonna put a video up here so you can check exactly how I use and apply it. But overall, it's extremely simple. I use a combination of overlay, multiply, and screen textures together with some texture brushes to make my digital paintings a bit less digital. But honestly, I think that an image explains it way better than I can with words. So here is the final portrait before applying the textures and after applying the textures. Again, if you want to start watching my course about how to draw faces like a pro completely for free, simply go to lpart.me/faces and I'll send you access to some of my favorite classes. Thank you very much for watching this video till the end, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye.